The first week of July is always an emotional one for me. In this week, my rabbi, Rabbi Simon Francis, the rabbi who bar mitzvahed me and who helped guide me towards the rabbinate, he passed away in the first week of July. And also my very close friend, student Rabbi Andreas Hintz, was murdered. He passed away in 2002. And Andy was the one who showed me how homophobic I was without realizing. And he did so without ever teaching me, without ever explicitly going out and showing me. What he did was he lived his life fully. And he expressed himself proudly as a queer Jew. And he showed how it is not only possible, but absolutely exciting, vibrant to lead a life, a Jewish life, that isn't necessarily a heterosexual life. And Andy was an extraordinary person in that he taught us, especially me, how we need to totally review the way that we approach the LGBTQIA community. And when he died, I vowed to keep those lessons going. When I started here at Temple Beth Shalom, very nearly 10 years ago, I was a scholar in residence because I had written a thesis, not right at the end of my rabbinic studies, on what was then called transsexual surgery, on crossing the gender boundaries of Judaism. And I gave a presentation on the Friday night before the Shabbat service, and I gave a more extended presentation on the Sunday afternoon. And I remember one particular member of the community turning around after I had said, we need to challenge all of our gender perceptions, particularly this really rigid idea of a binary gendered system. And this member turned around and said, okay, so now what? What do we do in our community? And I said, honestly, I don't know. And it's challenging for me, interesting for me, that it's taken 10 years to start to more fully develop an answer to that. I appreciate it definitely shouldn't have taken that long. Ultimately, our community said it was a welcoming and inclusive community, and that was code, especially for the last few decades, of we welcome people regardless of their gender and sexual diversity. But that's not really enough, actually. If your space is heteronormative, if your space assumes certain things, you're actually not as welcoming and inclusive as you might think. So we started to be represented at Pride on the Plaza. And I'm very proud to spend Shabbat there, meeting people, showing how important it is for us to support not just queer Jews, but members individuals all across Santa Fe who are part of the LGBTQIA community. And so leading on from that, we started, I'd say a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I gave a sermon and we started a discussion on how we might use pronouns better. To act as allies in particular. And now, recently, in the last year, we've had discussions or started discussions on the other gendered assumptions of our community, such as the gendered assumption of how our building is laid out, or the gendered assumptions of our rituals and our liturgy. And so we are slowly developing this. Thankfully, our READY group, the Racial Equity, Diversity and Inclusion group, came up with a whole list of suggestions of things for us to focus on, and we're now taking that forward to the board and outside in the community. But my responsibility in particular is also to the ritual. And so we have our Pride Shabbat service this evening. And I know people say, but it's not Pride Month. Well, it doesn't have to be. You can support Pride in other months. The reason we have it particularly this week is because the Pride Parade was very late this year. In June, and so we wanted to make sure we had our service the week afterwards. And so in our service this evening, our Pride Shabbat service this evening, we're really going to be including rituals, liturgy, prayers, readings that I don't want us to just include today, but I want us to think about how we might include similar prayers and rituals throughout the year. Because it's really important for us not to engage in tokenism, not to check off the box and say we've done Pride on the Plaza, we've done our Pride Shabbat, therefore we've supported the LGBTQ community and we'll be back next year. I want to make sure that we really explore this and transform our community accordingly. And this is not just as a matter of inclusion, but also a matter of mental health, particularly supporting the younger members of our community who struggle with identity and who need an absolutely safe, affirming place. And so, therefore, I really encourage you to join us for our service this evening. Many of the composers of the music you'll hear are members of the LGBTQIA community and will be sharing prayers from them as well. And my hope is that you'll hear and then give feedback as to what you might like to see included in our other services during the rest of the year, whether there are certain prayers that you think are really important to continue. So please join us for our Pride Shabbat service tonight. And then tomorrow morning, our Torah study is on Korach, whether or not Korach's understanding of holiness helps or hinders the people. Does Korach's rebellion, is that a good thing for the people or a bad thing? And then we have our Shabbat Shacharit service, of course. And then we have our inaugural community conversation. And this is something I promised a while ago, and I'm sorry it took so long to get to it. Once a month, on the first Saturday of the month, we're going to have a community conversation. The idea is the Shabbat Shacharit service finishes around 11:30 in the morning. And then you bring your brown bag lunch, and over lunch, we sit and we talk. And we talk about a different topic each month. And this month's topic is the role of religion today, which is actually a really challenging conversation. But we're going to discuss it in a very nice, comforting, supportive and safe way. And we're going to do it, as Jews often do, over food, so that we can share food as well. If need be, we can just be together. Because one of the key parts of being a Reformed Jew is, or being a Reformed community, is creating space for diverse opinions. And so I can share a lot from the pulpit, and I can share my perspective of Judaism, and I understand that the community hired me for my perspective of Judaism, and in some sense to speak on behalf of the community in certain matters. But it's important for members of the community to speak, and for me to actually step back, and members of the community to lift up their voices as well. So I encourage you, please join us around 11:30 tomorrow morning as well. Please bring your lunch. There won't be food. Please bring your own lunch. And if you want, bring some food to share as well. And please join us for our inaugural community conversation on the role of religion today. I hope to see you over this really exciting Shabbat as we affirm and explore. And I wish you Shabbat Shalom.